Hi, everyone. This is the video for chapter 6 and 7 of the book, What Was Ellis Island? Chapter 6 is called The Open Door Slams Shut. Chapter 7 is called Back from Ruins. Okay, let's take a look at the first page. Chapter 6, The Open Door Slams Shut. In 1914, World War I began in Europe. It went on for 4 years. The United States did not join the fighting until 1917. During the war, immigration at Ellis Island slowed to a trickle. In 1914, about 880,000 immigrants had come through its doors. By 1918, the numbers had fallen sharply to 29,000. So Ellis Island was used for new purposes. During the war, it became a holding pen for enemies of the government. In addition, the Army and Navy treated their wounded at the Ellis Island Hospital. And they used the dorms to house troops waiting to go overseas. After World War I, the numbers of incoming immigrants soared again. But by this time, a movement against immigration had begun in the United States. Citizens worried about losing jobs to immigrants who would work for lower pay. And prejudice against immigrants was widespread. In 1921, Congress passed the Emergency Quota Act. A quota means a limit was placed on how many immigrants could enter the United States each year. The number was set at about 350,000. The law also limited how many people could come from each country. Never before had the United States set limits on immigration. The open door was slamming shut. 3 years later, in 1924, came an even tougher law. It cut immigration in half. Now, a total of about 165,000 immigrants were allowed into the United States each year. The law also favored people from countries in Northern and Western Europe. Out of every 100 immigrants, 85 came from these countries. Only 12 of the 100 came from Southern and Eastern Europe. People from Asia and Africa were left with the remaining 3 spots. In 1906, more than 285,000 Italians had come through Ellis Island. The 1921 law limited the number of Italians to 42,000. The 1924 law slashed the number to 4,000 a year. The law caused yet another major change. It stopped the testing of immigrants at Ellis Island. Testing now took place before immigrants left home, at US embassies. These government offices had been set up around the globe after World War I, when the United States became a world power. After 1924, inspectors at Ellis Island just checked the papers of immigrants who came through. During World War II, Ellis Island was again used to detain foreign enemies and treat wounded servicemen. The US Coast Guard also trained 60,000 troops there. After the war ended in 1945, most of the buildings lay empty. The cost of keeping the island open was very high. Since the arrival of that Irish girl named Annie Moore, 12 million immigrants had passed through the little island, the gateway to America. Now all those stories were part of history. On November 12, 1954, Ellis Island was closed. Now let's read about Angel Island. Most immigrants entered the United States through Ellis Island, but there were other immigration stations too. They were in US ports such as Boston, Baltimore, Miami, and New Orleans. On the West Coast, the most famed immigration station was Angel Island in San Francisco, California. Some called it the Ellis Island of the West. About 1 million immigrants came to Angel Island from 1910 to 1940. Most came from Asia, especially China. The Chinese had started coming to America in large numbers during the California Gold Rush from 1848 to 1855. In the late 1860s, thousands more came to help build America's first railroads. Since the Chinese worked for very little pay, American workers often resented them. Laws were passed to make it extremely hard for them to enter America. As a result, Angel Island acted mostly as a place to detain and deport immigrants. This was far different than Ellis Island, which passed 98% of immigrants into the country. Today, Angel Island is a historic landmark. Chapter 7, Back from Ruins. After 1954, Ellis Island became a ghost town. Buildings, once grand and stately, fell into decay. Weeds and vines overgrew the walls. Windows cracked. Plaster walls crumbled inside. Rain and floods rotted the floors. Thieves snuck onto the deserted island, stealing everything from doorknobs to dishes. Ellis Island was a wreck. Then in 1965, President Lyndon Johnson declared Ellis Island a historic site. For nearly 3 decades, Ellis Island was a symbol of freedom for millions, he said. Johnson put the National Park Service in charge of the site. The Park Service set about clearing away the junk on the island. 40,000 tons of garbage were removed. Repairs were made on the main building, so it was safe for visitors. In 1976, Ellis Island was opened again to the public for 1-hour tours. But the island still looked shabby. New York Times writer Sidney H. Schunberg reported on the slow rot of the main building. Windows are out, and in one room, moss and small trees are growing, and pigeons have settled in. In 1982, the future of Ellis Island looked more promising. President Ronald Reagan set up a special group to find ways to restore the island and turn it into a museum. The cost of restoring Ellis Island was going to cost millions, but the government wouldn't be paying for any of it. The overhaul was to be funded entirely by donations from the American people. A well-known, successful businessman named Lee Iacocca was put in charge. Iacocca cared deeply about the project. His own parents had come from Italy through Ellis Island. Iacocca raised over $150 million, donated by more than 20 million Americans. The restoration, started in 1984, was a huge challenge. Bringing the main building back to its former glory would become the biggest historic restoration job ever done on a building in the United States. Drying out the building came first. It was so damp inside that 2 giant heaters had to run nonstop for 2 years before it dried out. New copper for the 4 domes replaced the copper stolen by thieves. Amazingly, the prized tile ceiling of the Great Hall needed little repair. The ceiling had been installed in 1917 with over 28,000 tiles. Only 27 of the tiles needed replacing. As workers scraped paint off the walls, hidden graffiti came to light. Immigrants had scrawled poems, drawings, names, and messages on the walls. What did they write with? They used pencil and the unforgettable blue chalk of the inspectors. The graffiti was carefully preserved as a piece of living history. After 8 years of work, Ellis Island was ready to open its doors once more. Okay, that is the end of chapters 6 and 7. There's a separate video for vocabulary on these chapters, and we'll have one more video on chapter 8, which is called Ellis Island Today. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.